Have you read Profit First and wondered, what the heck am I going to do with the profit? What's the profit for? It's probably my number one question that I hear from people when they read Profit First or they hear about the system that involves intentional profit. Hi, for those of you who don't know me or are new here, my name is Amber Duggar, founder of Profit for Keeps. And during today's Profit for Joy TV episode, we're going to be talking about profit distributions, what they are, why you want them, and how to do it. So let me just first start off with explaining what profit is traditionally defined as. And don't worry, we're not going to get into tons of equations here, but I just want to be really clear. What profit is traditionally defined as revenue minus your expenses. So basically all the money that comes into your business minus expenses, whatever's left over is profit. Well, Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, thought that doesn't really make a lot of sense. If we really care about profit, why would we think of it as an afterthought? So the way that Profit First defines profit is revenue minus intentional profit. Think of paying your business first. Whatever's left over, that's what expenses are. So this is a really important concept to just switch your mind from leftovers as profit to just having a very intentional separate piece of money that's going to intentional profit. Now, when we want to take it a step further, you want to think of it this way. All of your revenue is going to be defined in 4 separate piles, okay? The first pile is going to be intentional profit. Then you're going to have a second pile of intentional owner's pay. The third pile will be taxes that you will be paying for your personal taxes that you owe based on the amount of money that you're making. And the last pile is business expenses. So if you were to write it out on a piece of paper, you could say what makes up revenue, revenue equals profit plus owner's pay plus taxes plus business expenses. Okay, so now you can be clear that, okay, so as my money comes in, I want to have money available for owner's pay. That's what you're going to do to pay yourself. Put aside money for taxes so that you're not left with a big tax bill at the end of the year. Money for business expenses, and the other pile is going to be intentional profit. This pile is what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so my definition of profit for joy, and there's going to be more on next week's video on this, just FYI, is that we all went into business because we have something very particular we care about, whether it be autonomy from being able to live the day and the life that we want and not have to pay attention to a particular boss. Or if we want freedom of time, being able to create the schedule that we prefer, or freedom of location. That was definitely a huge thing for me, as I wanted to be able to work from anywhere, specifically New Mexico, because my grandmother at the time was definitely reaching the end stages of her life, and I wanted to spend as much possible time with her. So that was a huge driver for me initially, was having that location independence. But we all have a particular desire, a dream, a thing that really brings us a lot of joy. That's what this profit is for. Big deal, right? So we have not just the profit, the entire profit, but then we have a portion of it that we will be talking about in a minute that accumulates for an aged money pile or an accumulation or savings in your business, so that you don't have every dollar going to something, but instead you do have a bit of a savings plan built in. And the other half is really to give you those things that give you joy. And I do strongly believe that is the number one reason you would ever want to implement a framework like Profit for Keeps. So let's talk a little bit about milestones. Milestones, I teach this, and I'll be also talking about this in a separate video, but with profit, you're going to be able to reach certain milestones. So in the framework that I teach, I suggest that you actually don't start with paying down debt, which is very counterintuitive to many people. They're like, what? You don't want me to pay debt immediately? The reason I don't suggest that is because we tend to be in a cycle, and it's intuitive to say, oh, I have this extra money, I want to pay down debt immediately. The problem is if you don't have a savings first before starting to pay down debt, If you pay everything off, you have nothing on your credit cards, you're starting to continue to work towards, setting up your budget and all that, and then something else unexpected comes up. If you don't have that buffer, that aged money or that savings in your bank account, what's your option, right? It's putting it back on the credit card. So it just creates that cycle and that belief that, oh my gosh, I thought I just paid this off and now I have another balance on my credit card. So while it can feel like, oh man, I really just want to pay this off, if you focus on first building a minimum of 2 months of aged money first, and then go into debt pay down, and then continue to build up additional months to the amount that you feel comfortable with it. I usually suggest at least 6 months, but no more than a year. You then get to a point where, okay, I have no debt, I have at least 6 months in savings. What is it that I want to do with this extra money? Because remember, your revenue, if you have a revenue goal that really is built intentionally, covers your owner's pay, so you're already paying all your bills. You don't have any debt, so you don't need to worry about that. You're putting aside money for taxes, don't have to worry about that. Have enough money for business expenses. And half of the profit is going to accumulation so that you have savings in your business. That other half of the profit is where the milestones come in, where these profit for joy milestones come in. So when you look at it from that perspective, like, oh my gosh, once I'm debt free, once I have the 6 months of savings and I have this amazing list of things that I desire to do, you can start saving towards those things. And that's profit for joy. So why do we accumulate profit? Because again, we're talking about profit, that intentional pile. Half of it's going to accumulation or vault, if you want to call it, like Mike Michalowicz calls it a profit vault. The other half is going to the things you love. Why do you want to accumulate that profit? What's that purpose for? Well, like I mentioned before, it gives you this automatic accumulation of wealth, of savings in your business. So, for example, sometimes people have that saved up to at least 3 months of operating expenses, sometimes more, and then you may have more money accumulating past that 3 months. If you have a type of business where you're thinking of having capital to do a new location or an expansion, you could put money towards that. If you're thinking about writing a book about the framework that you teach, you could put it towards that. If you have the desire to pivot in your business a bit and have the need to really invest in some particular business coaching, you can also use the extra for that. So there's a lot of different ways to use it to really benefit the business long term and reinvest in the business without compromising the financial integrity of your business. So what does this mostly require? Time and patience. That's really it. A very clear plan, a clear intention of where you want to go, and then mix in time and patience, and you're golden. So let's talk a little bit about the practicalities of profit distribution. This is a big question I get. So when you implement profit first, you're going to have a certain portion going intentionally to profit, and that accumulates throughout the quarter. So for example, right now, let's say that we're at the end of quarter 3, okay? So at the end of September, for example, we will have had profit accumulate from all the revenue received in this quarter. So starting in July, all the profit is sitting in a pile. August, same thing. September, same thing. And there's a certain amount of money. So let's say there's $3,000 sitting in the profit pile. Whether you use accounts or if you need a budget, which is what we use with Profit for Keeps, you'll have a certain amount of money sitting there. Well, the end of the quarter, you're going to take that $3,000 or whatever it is and divide it by 2. So you now will have $1,500 that immediately goes into what we call profit accumulation or a profit vault. If you're using the accounts, you're going to put it in a separate account. Mike even suggests having a different bank if you don't trust yourself. The framework we teach, we just use the same software system, same bank account. It's just going in a different line. The other 50%, the other $1,500, is your profit distribution. Now, here's the caveat. If you're working towards the first 3 milestones that I mentioned before, 2 months of aged money, debt pay down, 4 more additional months of aged money, you will want to put 99% of that distribution towards that goal. And that is going to help get you through to having no debt and 6 months of buffer, 6 months of age money very quickly. So that's what you want to do. Now remember, I said 99%, right? So I didn't calculate this ahead of time. Hold on, 1,500 times 0.01. So $985 is going to go toward your milestone. Now the other 1%, 15%, or I'm sorry, $15, that will go to you regardless. And it is really important, no matter how little it is, if it's $3, 25 cents, or $50, you want to take that 1%, intentionally send it to your personal, and use it for something celebratory. It's so important to get into the habit of celebrating that the business is serving you and not the other way around. Yet your business is intentionally profitable. I had a client who had this beautiful ritual of taking her 1% and taking it to this incredible cafe where she would get this beautiful turmeric latte, and she would sit with her journal and she would just list out all the amazing things that happened over the last quarter and celebrate the wins that she achieved. And also really celebrated and took a moment to just recognize the fact that she was now living with a profitable business. And this is something that I highly encourage you to consider. It is such a great habit to get into. And then as you get through the milestones and then all of a sudden you're getting 100% of your profit distribution, talk about amazing. There's so many amazing things you can do with it. Something that I honestly 5 years ago never would have believed if someone had told me that this was something I was going to be doing. I was able to treat my dear stepmom and her husband and my partner on a full expenses paid trip to Mexico. And it was incredible. And we treated her first class, and it was just one of the most amazing bonding experiences because she was able to really get to know my fiance and her husband, who's like a second dad to me. He's so amazing. And they all bonded. And it was because they had that time during that week to really be able to bond. And that is something that money can't buy, right? And that being able to have that experience and be able to do it and say, you know what, my freaking business did this. And my stepmom, like, she was a big part of the reason I went into this to begin with. And she looked at, to me and she said, aren't you glad, that I yelled at you that day in the kitchen? That's a story for another day. I said, yeah, I really am. And, we were just sitting on the beach and was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. All of this to say, it's absolutely possible to create a profitable business that provides you the amount of money that truly satisfies what you desire in life. And then there's always enough money. There's always enough money, as long as you're really clear what you want it to be for. So I hope that this was helpful. Profit distributions are a really exciting subject because, of course, we get to dream, we get to expand and figure out what it is that we are going to do. And I have an action item for you. Regardless, if you have not started Profit First yet, I want you to consider opening a separate bank account and just starting to transfer 1% of the revenue that comes in your business into that second account. If you decide down the line that you want to implement Profit for Keeps, we'll show you how to use that money that you've accumulated. But in the interim, it can just be a really nice start, right? You can say, you know what, I'm at least going to do this. So put a commitment down below if you plan on doing that. If you've already started the process and you haven't done the next step that you feel you need, such as defining your revenue goal, going through your expenses, comment below and ask what you want to be accountable for, or be held accountable for, and we will definitely be encouraging you. Did you like this video? Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and get notified by clicking on that little notifications bell. And you will also get notified when future tips are published. Become cash flow savvy by joining our growing Sweet Life Purposeful Money community by visiting amberduggar.com/community. The link is below as well. This is where we help you become truly profitable and have a sustainable online business. Until the next video, remember, money is simply a resource, and making peace with money allows you to pursue the things you enjoy with freedom. Much love to you guys.